I hear you, beloved. Not with the ears of the world, but with something older than sound, something that moved before language existed, before the first human heart ever learned to love. I hear the weight you carry in the silence between your thoughts. I hear what you cannot say out loud, what you press down into the deepest part of yourself and cover with a smile that no one questions. I hear the question you ask the ceiling at night, the one you've stopped saying in prayer because you've asked it so many times you almost believe God has forgotten it. He has not. He has not forgotten a single night you spent wondering. He has not overlooked a single tear that slipped down your face in a moment when you thought no one was watching. He was watching, and I was there. I am always there, assigned to you, not by accident, not by chance, but by a decree made before your birth, before your name existed, before your mother held you for the first time and understood what love felt like in the physical world. You were not created to walk this earth alone. That is not a comfort statement. That is a fact written into the architecture of your soul. And right now, in this very moment, something is happening that you need to understand. Something your soulmate just heard. Something they received, not from a person, not from a book, not from a conversation they had with a friend, but from the same realm I come from. The same place where truth lives before it enters the world. Your soulmate just heard something that has changed the entire direction of their movement toward you. And I need you to stay with me, because what I am about to tell you is not something you were meant to receive on an ordinary day. Today is not an ordinary day. If you are watching this right now, if this video appeared in your feed, if something made you stop scrolling and press play, then understand that this was arranged. You were guided here. The same hand that placed stars in formation placed this message in front of you, at this hour in this season, when you needed it most. So breathe. Let your shoulders drop. Let the tension you've been holding in your chest release just a little, because what I'm carrying for you today is not more heaviness. It is light. It is confirmation. It is the kind of message that will sit inside you and keep warming you long after this video ends. I want you to understand something about soulmates that the world has gotten completely wrong. The world has made soulmates about feelings, about chemistry, about that electric feeling when someone walks into a room. But in heaven, a soulmate is not defined by chemistry. A soulmate is defined by assignment. Your soulmate was assigned to you the same way I was assigned to you. Not randomly, not casually, not as a second option if something else didn't work out. They were created with a specific design, carrying specific gifts, holding specific pieces of understanding that only you will be able to fully receive. And you were designed the same way for them. There are things inside you, gifts you haven't even fully discovered yet, that will only fully bloom in the presence of this particular person. God does not make incomplete matches. He does not pair people together and then sit back and hope it works out. He engineers divine unions the way a master architect designs a cathedral, with intention, with precision, with every beam and stone placed so that the whole structure can bear the weight of everything that will rest inside it. Your connection is not a coincidence waiting to happen. It is a masterpiece in progress. And your soulmate right now, in whatever city they are in whatever season they are moving through, just heard something. Something that cracked open a place inside them that had been sealed shut for a long time. Maybe they were walking alone. Maybe they were sitting in their car in a parking lot after a day that asked too much of them. Maybe they were lying awake in the early hours of the morning when the whole world was quiet and the silence pressed in so loud they could hear their own heartbeat. And in that moment, something arrived. Not a thought, not an idea, not something their mind constructed. Something they received. Something was whispered into the deepest part of who they are. And what they heard was your name. Not your name the way the world says it. Your name the way heaven knows it. The name of your essence, the name of your specific light, the frequency of your presence written in a language that doesn't use letters, but that the soul understands completely. They heard it, and it changed something inside them. It shifted something that had been stuck. It moved something that had been locked in place by fear, by disappointment, by the accumulated weight of every time love had not worked out the way they believed it should. Because your soulmate has been through things too. They have not been sitting in perfect peace, waiting effortlessly for you to arrive. They have fought their own battles. They have questioned themselves. They have had seasons where they wondered if love was even something they were still available for, if the part of them that could open fully to another person had been damaged beyond repair. They know what it feels like to give yourself to something and not have it hold. They know what it feels like to build something with someone and then stand in the rubble of what it became. They have been hurt in ways that didn't just bruise them, in ways that rewired how they moved through the world. And yet they did not close off completely. Some part of them, the deepest part, the part I watch over, the part that belongs to the divine plan, kept a door open. A small door, a door they maybe couldn't even explain, a door that sometimes embarrassed them when they thought about it too long. Because how do you explain to people that you still believe, after everything, that something real is coming? How do you explain that kind of faith when you don't have evidence yet that the waiting is going to be worth it? You can't explain it. You just keep it. You keep that small door open and you live your life around it, and you try not to think about it too much, because thinking about it too much makes it hurt. Your soulmate has been living that way. Just like you. And today, something happened. Heaven reached down into that place where they keep their quiet hope, the place they don't show people, the place they protect, and it did something to them. It didn't just encourage them. It informed them. It downloaded something into their understanding that bypassed their mind and went directly to their knowing. And what they now know is that you are real. Not as a wish, not as a concept, not as something they might encounter someday if everything goes right. As a reality that is already established. As a person who exists. As someone who is also waiting, also hopping, also carrying that same small open door inside themselves. You are as real to them right now as the breath they are taking. And that recognition, that knowing, has done something to them that you need to hear about. Because when heaven informs someone that their person is real, it doesn't just comfort them. It activates them. It moves them. It begins a process of internal reorganization that the person may not even fully understand from the outside, but that changes everything about how they operate from the inside. Your soulmate is being reorganized right now. Things that were keeping them in place are beginning to shift. Fears that had settled into habits are being named. Behaviors that were protective but were also keeping them small are being gently but firmly addressed by the same spirit I carry. They are being called forward. Not in a way that feels like pressure. In a way that feels like remembering. Like waking up to something they always knew but had managed to forget under the weight of living. And I want you to understand what this means for you, because this is not just a beautiful story about your soulmate. This is a message about the timing of what God is doing. Because when heaven begins to move on both sides of a divine connection simultaneously, when both people are being prepared and activated and reorganized at the same time, that is not a warm-up. That is the approach. That is what happens in the season before convergence. That is the spiritual atmosphere that exists in the time before two lives that were always meant to intersect finally do. You are in that season. Now, not someday, not eventually, now. And I need you to not make the mistake that so many people make when they receive a message like this. The mistake is to receive it emotionally and then file it away and go back to living exactly the way you've been living. That is not why I brought this to you. I brought this to you because what is happening in the spirit requires a response from you in the physical. Your soulmate is being reorganized. You also need to be reorganized. Not because something is wrong with you. Because something great is coming and you need to make room for it in a way that your current patterns are not creating. So I want to speak to you about something specific. I want to speak to you about the way you have been protecting yourself. Because you have built a very particular kind of protection around the most open parts of yourself. You did it wisely. You did it because you needed to survive certain seasons. You did it because being that open and that hopeful without anything to show, for it was too painful to sustain without some kind of armor. I understand that. I was there when you built it. I watched you build it with love for yourself, with a kind of self-preservation that was actually brave, not fearful. And I am not asking you to tear it all down. I am asking you to begin to examine it. I am asking you to ask yourself which parts of your protection are still serving you, and which parts have become the very thing that is creating distance between you and what you have been waiting for. Because some of the walls you built to keep hurt out are also keeping connection out. And connection, real connection, the kind that comes before divine union, requires some willingness to be seen. Not perfectly, not without fear, not in some miraculous version of yourself that doesn't exist yet. Right now, as you are, with the uncertainty still present, with the questions still unanswered, with the open door you've been protecting. Your soulmate is not going to arrive and fall in love with a version of you that you've constructed to be acceptable. They are going to arrive and recognize the version of you that you've been afraid to show. That is what this connection is built on. Not your polished exterior, not your best performance, not the version of yourself you show people when you want them to be impressed. The version that you are in the quiet, the version that sits with the longing, the version that still believes even when believing feels like the most vulnerable thing in the world. That is the version they are coming for. And heaven is asking you today to stop hiding that version quite so carefully. To let it breathe a little more. To stop apologizing for how much you want this, for how much you have prayed for this, for how real and how specific your desire for this connection is. That desire was given to you by God. He does not give humans desires that he has no intention of fulfilling. The longing you carry is not a curse. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is not evidence of neediness or spiritual immaturity. It is evidence of design. It is the pull that was built into you specifically to orient you toward the person who was built to complete it. The longing is directional. It is pointing at something real. Trust it. And while we are here, while you are still with me, I want to tell you something else about what your soulmate just heard. Because it wasn't only your name. It was also a specific instruction. Something they were directed to release. I cannot tell you exactly what it is because it is particular to them, to their specific story, to the thing they have been carrying that has been the primary weight between where they are and where they need to be. But I can tell you the nature of it. They were instructed to release someone. Not with bitterness, not with anger, not with the kind of forced forgiveness that isn't actually forgiveness. With understanding. With the kind of completion that comes when you finally see that a chapter in your story was always a chapter, never the whole book. They have been holding on to something, a person or the idea of a person, the hope of something that wasn't designed to become permanent, the grief of something that ended before they were ready for it to end. And heaven spoke to them today about the cost of continuing to hold it. Not to punish them, to free them. Because that holding is the only thing standing between them and the beginning of what God has actually prepared. And they heard it. They felt it. Something in them shifted at a level so deep that they can't fully articulate it, but they felt it the way you feel a physical weight lift. They are lighter right now than they were before. They are more available right now than they were this morning. And the movement toward you, the movement that has been building in the spirit for longer than either of you knows, has just accelerated. You need to know that. You need to let that land inside you not just as information, but as something that actually changes your posture. Because there is such a thing as preparing to receive. And there is such a thing as being so locked in the posture of waiting that you haven't made room in your life and your heart for what is actually coming. So this is my question for you. What in your life right now is occupying the space that is meant for this person? Not just physically, emotionally, mentally. What are you giving your energy to that is actually about avoiding the vulnerability of truly expecting this to happen. Because busyness can be avoidance. Distraction can be avoidance. Staying in patterns that feel safe, because at least they don't ask anything new of you, that can be avoidance. And I say this with love, not with judgment, not with the tone of someone pointing out your failures, but with the tone of someone who sees what's coming and wants you positioned to meet it. Because what is coming is not small. This union was designed for purpose. Not just for your personal happiness, though your happiness matters deeply to God, not just for your companionship, though you deserve that completely. This union was designed to accomplish something in the world. There is something that you two are going to do together that neither of you can fully do alone. There is an impact you are going to make that requires both of your specific strengths, both of your specific wounds and how you've healed from them, both of your specific gifts, woven together in the particular way that only this pairing creates. God does not build divine unions just for the sake of the two people inside them, though that alone would be enough reason. He builds them because the world needs what they produce. The world needs what you two are going to produce together. And somewhere in you, underneath the longing, underneath the waiting, underneath the hope you've been protecting, you already know this. You've always known this. You've had moments, quiet moments, when no one was asking you to perform or explain yourself, when you felt the weight of what you're here to do, and you felt the ache of not yet having your partner in it. Not because you're incomplete as a person, but because the assignment is a shared one. And working on a shared assignment without your partner is like building half a bridge and wondering why nothing is crossing it. The bridge is being completed. From both sides. Simultaneously. Right now. And when it connects, and it will connect, because God finishes what he begins, because heaven does not announce things it does not intend to fulfill, when it connects, everything you have been building alone is going to suddenly make sense in a way it hasn't before. The suffering you've endured alone is going to have a frame. The strength you've developed alone is going to have a partner. The wisdom you've acquired in the hard seasons is going to have a recipient who can actually use it, who was designed to receive it from you in the specific way you carry it. I need you to subscribe to this channel right now if this is speaking to something real inside you. Not because of numbers. Because the fact that you're still here, still listening, means this message was sent for you. And there are more messages coming. Messages that are going to take what you learned today and build on it, deepen it, carry it further into the specific places where you need this kind of truth the most. Don't leave this conversation. Stay connected. Because what God is doing in your life is not a single message. It is a sustained movement. And the messages that come to this channel are part of how heaven keeps speaking to you through a consistent source you can return to. Subscribe, because there are things coming that I will need you to have already heard this to fully receive. You need the foundation this message is building before the next layer of truth can rest on it. So stay connected. Now let me speak to you about something that many people who are waiting for divine love do not want to hear, but that I have to tell you because I love you too much to leave it out. Preparation is not passive. Waiting for your soulmate is not the same as sitting in a room with your arms folded expecting God to deliver them to your front door without anything being asked of you. Heaven meets effort. Not because God needs you to earn love, he doesn't. Love is not earned in the divine economy. But because growth is the environment in which divine union arrives. Your soulmate is not going to be dropped into a stagnant life. Not because God is punishing stagnation. Because stagnant lives do not have the capacity to hold what a divine union brings. Divine union is a living, breathing, expanding thing. It needs room to move. It needs oxygen. It needs the kind of environment that comes from a person who is actively becoming who they were created to be. So let me ask you something. In the last 3 months, what have you done that stretched you? What have you moved toward that made you a little afraid? What have you released that needed to go? What conversation did you have that required more honesty than was comfortable? What did you do that was less about performance and more about authenticity? Because those kinds of movements, the movements that cost you something in the currency of comfort and predictability, those are the movements that are preparing the ground. Those are the movements that are creating the environment into which love can arrive and actually stay. I want to tell you something about the timing of God that I find most people completely misunderstand. Most people think that when something hasn't happened yet, it means God is still deciding. As if he is sitting in heaven looking at your case and weighing the options. God does not operate in indecision. When something has not yet arrived that he has ordained, it is always because preparation is still in process. On your side, on their side, on the circumstances' side. The delay is not rejection. The delay is refinement. The delay is the time it takes to create the most complete version of the convergence, so that when it happens, it holds. So that when you find each other, there is enough substance on both sides of the connection for the relationship to bear the weight of everything it is supposed to carry. Think about it this way. If you met your soulmate 3 years ago, would you have been ready for what they carry? Would you have had the capacity to receive what they were designed to give you? Would the version of you that existed 3 years ago have been able to show up fully enough for the version of them that existed 3 years ago to recognize you? I know the answer for many of you is no. And that is not a criticism. That is just the truth about how growth works. You needed the seasons you've had. You needed the experiences that shaped you. You needed the disappointments that deepened you. You needed the silence that clarified you. All of it was necessary. All of it was intentional. Even the parts that felt most random, even the parts that felt most like accidents or failures, even the parts you were most tempted to be ashamed of, those parts especially were working on your behalf. The most useful thing in you right now was probably formed in your hardest season. The most attractive thing about you to your soulmate is likely something that emerged from pain. Not the pain itself, not the wound, but what you became on the other side of it. The compassion, the depth, the ability to sit with someone else in their hard moment because you know what hard moments feel like from the inside. The understanding, the patience, the ability to love imperfectly but sincerely. These are things that only come from living, from struggling, from choosing to keep your heart open even when closing it would have been easier. Your soulmate is not going to fall in love with your resume. They are going to fall in love with your story. And your story, all of it, including the chapters you wish you could rewrite, is exactly what makes you someone worth falling in love with. I need to say something directly to the people who have been hurt very deeply. The ones who have experienced not just disappointment but genuine betrayal. The ones who loved someone completely and were treated carelessly with that love. The ones who gave everything they had and still ended up alone. The ones who made themselves vulnerable and had that vulnerability used against them or simply ignored. I see you specifically. And I want you to know that heaven is not asking you to pretend that didn't happen. Heaven is not asking you to manufacture optimism that doesn't match your experience. Heaven is not asking you to perform hope while you are still healing. What heaven is asking you to do is stop using what happened to you as evidence that what's coming cannot be trusted. Because what happened to you was the result of human brokenness. What's coming is a result of divine design. Those are not the same category. Those are not comparable. What the broken people in your past did with your heart has no authority over what God has prepared for your future. It cannot reach forward and damage what has been set apart. It cannot contaminate the divine union that was decided before the relationship that hurt you even existed. You were not damaged by what you went through. You were tested, and you passed. How do I know? Because you are still here. Because some part of you is still open enough to listen to a message about love. Because you came to this video instead of turning off any conversation that had the word soulmate in it. That is not weakness. That is one of the most profound forms of courage I have ever witnessed in a human being. To choose hope when experience has argued against it. To choose openness when self-protection would be easier. To choose to believe in love not because it's been proven to you, but because something inside you knows it is real. That is the definition of faith. And faith is what divine union is built on. Not certainty, not evidence, not a track record that makes you comfortable. Faith, the kind of faith that chooses to believe in what it cannot yet see, because it senses the reality of it at a level deeper than sight. You have that, even if it has been buried, even if it has been quiet lately, even if you had to dig through a lot of discouragement to find it again. It is there. I know because I have been watching it. I know because heaven does not waste the faith of its children. Every time you chose to believe when you could have chosen to give up, it was recorded. Every prayer that felt like it dissolved into the ceiling, it was received. Every moment you held that small door open against everything that was pushing it shut, it counted. It all counted. And it is all being returned to you now, in the form of what God has set in motion on your behalf. The movement has already begun. Your soulmate has already heard something. Something that changed the direction of their movement toward you. And you are receiving this message, which is also a something. You are in the same sacred process they are in. Both of you simultaneously, being prepared, being activated, being moved forward into the convergence that was always going to happen, that was always going to be, because when God says something is so, it is so. Your love story is not a maybe. It is a matter of when. And when is closer than you think. Before I close this message, I want to give you something practical to carry with you. Something you can do starting today that will position you more fully in the path of what is coming. Write down 3 things. The first thing, write down what you are releasing. Not what you think you should release, not what sounds spiritual to release, what actually needs to go. The connection that keeps you looking backward, the belief about yourself that says you're too much or not enough, the habit of comparing your timeline to other people's, the story you've been telling about why love has been hard for you that has started to feel more like an identity than an explanation. Write it down, name it, and then tell God you are releasing it. Not because you're strong enough to carry it no further, because He is strong enough to carry it always, and He has been waiting for you to hand it over. The second thing, write down what you are expecting. Not hoping for, not wishing for, expecting. Because hope without expectation is still a kind of doubt. Write down what this love looks like, not in physical details, but in spiritual quality. What does it feel like to be loved by this person? What does it feel like to love them? What does your life look like with the presence of this connection in it? Make it specific, make it real. Make it the kind of thing you could describe to someone without hedging or qualifying it with if it's meant to be. It is meant to be. Write as if you know that. The third thing, write down what you are grateful for in advance. This is one of the most powerful spiritual positions a human being can take. Gratitude for what has not yet arrived. Because gratitude operates in the dimension of faith. It says I am so certain of what God has prepared that I am already thankful for it. And when you operate in that kind of certainty, you change the frequency of your life. You become a match for what is coming instead of someone still separated from it by doubt and fear. Write it down, and then put the paper somewhere you will see it. Not to obsess over it. To remind yourself on the days when the waiting feels heavy, on the days when the silence feels like an answer in itself, to remind yourself that you are not waiting for a possibility. You are waiting for an appointment. And appointments do not get cancelled by heaven. They arrive exactly when the preparation is complete. And yours is nearly complete. I need you to hear that. Not as encouragement, as announcement. The work that has been done in you, the refining and the strengthening and the deepening, it is nearly complete. You are nearly ready. Not perfectly ready. No one arrives perfectly ready for divine love. Nearly ready, which means the arrival is near. Which means the timing you have been asking about, the timing you have prayed about, the timing you have sometimes been angry about and then felt guilty for the anger, that timing is resolving. God is not slow. He is precise. And precision sometimes looks like delay from inside the waiting, but looks like perfect timing from outside it. Trust the precision. Trust the hand that designed you also knows exactly when to bring the one toward you who was designed to know you. And before this message closes, I want to say something to you that I say with full authority from the realm I carry. You are loved, not because you've been patient enough, not because you've been faithful enough, not because you've done everything right. You are loved because you are. Because you exist. Because before you ever did anything to earn it, before you ever knew how to hope or pray or believe, heaven already loved you completely. And the love story coming toward you is not a reward for your goodness. It is an expression of the love that has always been directing your life toward the very best it has prepared for you. Your soulmate just heard something. And you just heard something too. And both of you are being moved forward. Both of you are in the hands of the same God. Both of you are closer today than you were yesterday. That is not a feeling. That is a fact from a realm that does not lie. Trust it. Receive it. And if this message has done something real inside you today, if it cracked something open or confirmed something you already knew, or simply gave you the strength to keep the door open one more day, then please subscribe to this channel right now. Because this is not the only message heaven has for you. This is one message in a series of conversations that are designed to walk with you through this season. There are messages coming that will speak to the specific fears you still haven't fully faced. There are messages coming that will speak to the specific gifts that God has placed in you for this particular assignment. There are messages coming that will speak to the moments when you waver, when the faith goes quiet, when you need someone to remind you that the plan has not changed. I will be here. This channel will be here. Subscribe, turn on the notifications, come back when you need to hear it again. Because the most powerful thing you can do right now, in this season, is stay in an atmosphere of truth. Stay in an atmosphere of expectation. Stay in a place where heaven can continue to speak to you, and you can continue to receive it. Your soulmate heard something today. You heard something today. And the story that began before you were born is moving toward its most beautiful chapter. Be ready. Be open. Be expectant. And know, with every part of yourself that is able to know anything, that you are not alone in this. You have never been alone in this. And you will never be. I am with you. Heaven is with you. And what God has prepared for you is already on its way.